Early on in the property management days, I was trying to grow my network and I was looking for any resources and information that I could. And we did commercial property management and residential property management. In fact, many people don't know that Peak started by managing medical assets and medical associations and office buildings and things like that. And then we rolled into residential from there. And so a lot of who I tried to network with in the beginning were commercial brokerages and commercial agents, commercial brokers, et cetera. And the idea was to get a better understanding of the market, get a better understanding of great ways to do analysis, to get into different networks, and to meet good people overall that we can work together and we can support each other and things like that. And early on, I was introduced to an agent at One South Commercial, and this agent was one of the most knowledgeable people I had talked to, and she was just outstanding. It was Ann Schweitzer. Right. She was incredible, had really helped me understand some of the commercial layout in this market. And then eventually I meet some other people like Ryan Wiley and Justin Sled and a handful of others that were just really strong agents at that brokerage at One South. And so these people almost in a way, or at least I feel like they took me under their wing and they started showing me all these things about commercial real estate in Richmond all over town. It seemed like they had all the listings or they had all the buyers. And so I would be going with them to walk properties and potentially like look at managing these properties and things like that. And one day, as I'm getting deeper and deeper into One South and kind of their network and what they're doing, and I'm trying to add as much value as possible, we meet outside of I think it was Justin Sled this time. It was outside of a 12 or 16 unit building in Carytown somewhere that I think Justin had the listing, and then there was another agent that had the buyer, and we were meeting there to do a walkthrough. And the principal broker of One South, Tom Rosman, showed up, and it was my first time meeting him. And it was awesome because whenever I meet someone with a great organization, whenever I see people in a great organization, I always wonder sort of who's at the top, who is the leadership, who is kind of holding that team together as the glue. And that was the day that I met Tom. And it was interesting because when I met Tom, he was just as nice, just as humble, extremely knowledgeable, and more than willing to meet for coffee or carry on conversations or share his experience or knowledge or information. And that's exactly what I would expect for a leader on that type of brokerage that has that good of a team that works there. And so, and doing this podcast and working inside of commercial real estate and managing commercial assets, I was really excited for today. When we have Tom Rosman, principal broker of One South Commercial, on the podcast. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me here. It was a nice story, and appreciate you telling all those good things about us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because early on, I've always seen Peak as like a boutique property management company that really is out here to serve our community, and I get the same feeling for One South. And so one thing I wanted to do is kind of just get a snapshot of your childhood and just understand like what makes you Tom. Like, how did you get to real estate? So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your childhood up to about the time of when you entered into real estate.
Yeah, well, it's a long time because I didn't get into real estate till I was like 36 or something. But I grew up in San Francisco, an area called the Sunset District, which used to be, a lot of New Yorkers call it San Francisco's Brooklyn. This is back in the 60s. Real Catholic neighborhood. We had 5 kids and 2 parents, so we had 7. We were like considered a mediocre-sized family. Like a lot of my friends had 7, 8 kids.
Holy cow.
It was back in the 60s and 70s. And, one of the things that always amazes me when I think back now is how we deal with all the NIMBYism and man, this is after the war. They just built a whole neighborhood, and it was done like in 10 years. My parents bought the house like in 55 for $25,000. We all moved in, and it was just like everybody thrown together. It was just like, we went to the school, went to the park, went to the gym, did some things. We were close to the beach. It was a great area to grow up in. Cops, firemen, small business owners. My dad was an IRS auditor, an agent, investigator. Mom worked from home. I was the youngest of 5. So I was always like kind of play catch up, with
Right.
everybody. And then, I went to high school downtown, which kind of opened my eyes up with a Catholic high school. And it was, at that time in the 70s, San Francisco was really opening up. And so everybody in the world was coming there, ethnically and all the races. It was really, and when we were all thrown together, it was interesting and it was good to see all these different groups of people and see how we can, get along. But so then I went to Catholic college called Santa Clara, down about an hour south, exposed more to, wealthier people, and it was kind of eye-opening there, just how they thought so much differently than a lot of other people, in a good way. They were much more, let's go do this, let's go do that. So we, the day after I got out of college, I drove back graduated on a Saturday. On Sunday, I drove back home. My brother and I, who was a year older than me, started a business.
Interesting.
We're just so naive. We think, good, man, let's go out and kill it,
Easy, right?
Yeah, it's easy. So we started. We had no idea. And my dad had died when I was 15. My mom died when I was 22. So we were kind of on our own. It was just like no mentors. We tried to cultivate some, and we did, but we weren't as good as somebody like you going out and trying to meet people and things like that. We just went out and tried to do business. And we struggled, but it was good. We had a little building services company and did painting and things like that. And after we got going, we were rolling. And after about 5 years into it, we got a call from our attorney. Goes, there's a nightclub for sale. Do you guys want to buy this thing? I don't know anybody else that would be interested. You guys got a little business. You can do it. So we got in the nightclub business. I was 25, and we did that for 9 years.
Holy cow.
Again, just naive, and we opened another nightclub in San Jose, opened 2 other restaurants in San Francisco. Anyway, obviously that was crazy, and got married and had a kid, so we're like, okay, we gotta
chill out a bit.
My wife Michelle, her family's out in the East Coast, so that's why we came to Richmond.
Okay.
And friends of mine told me about Richmond, and I came out and fell in love with it. So I came in 92, and the idea was we were going to do a coffee chain, like a small coffee chain.
Okay.
San Francisco had 1 million of them.
Was that in Richmond? Did you come straight to Richmond, or did you go somewhere else? Okay.
Straight to Richmond.
Got it.
And we got a coffee house on Carytown, called it Coffee and Company. It's where, what's that bakery there? Thistle and the really good one down on.
Is it the franchise?
No, they're right there near the Bird Theater. Thistle and I always get it wrong. Anyway, a really good bakery there now. It was in that space. We did that for about 18 months, and I went to a wedding in San Francisco, and Starbucks just entered the market, was just mowing these guys down. It was this hip startup. It wasn't this corporate behemoth that it became. So I came back, and I had a partner, a financial partner, so we got to sell this thing because we're not going to be able to do what we want to do. And really, because we had the lease out on the Willow Lawn Starbucks space.
Okay.
And I said, I gave the lease back to I think it was Federated, and the woman said, great, I'm going to call Starbucks right now. I'm really glad you guys decided not to do it. I said, yeah, I figured as much,
Mm-hmm.
So Court Spots over at Spots and Carneal was looking for spaces for me for my next unit, He goes, you're going to sell the business? I said, yeah. He goes, what are you going to do? I go, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go to grad school. I'm going to get a job, or I'm going to go into another business somehow. He goes, why don't you come work in commercial real estate?
Awesome.
So I had known a bunch of guys back home in the business, because I was in the building services company, hitting them up, and I knew some friends that had done it. So I liked the business. I liked the people in it, the type of people. And I liked Court. And I said, yeah, man, this would be great. So I started doing that. Originally going to do a lot of retail, but I just kind of fell, kept going back to multifamily deals. I wanted to get into that. And at the time, things were a lot different. You could open up the Richmond Times Dispatch. It was in 93, 94, 95. And there'd be a 12 unit on Monument for sale or a 6 unit on. It was a totally fragmented market at the time. And it was good for someone like me to come in and just hustle deals. There was a couple other guys doing what I was doing. And it wasn't easy, but it wasn't incredibly difficult.
Why were you attracted to multifamily over retail or office or anything at the time? I know you guys do all kinds of stuff now.
Yeah.
But why were you attracted to multifamily originally, do you think?
I understood apartments. I owned a 6 unit back home in San Francisco one time, and I knew how it worked.
So you had already owned investment property at this point.
Yeah.
So that 6 unit, let's go back to that. What was your first deal in real estate? Your first outside of a primary house? What was your first purchase?
That was it.
The 6 unit was your first purchase?
Haight-Ashbury district.
And then you had partners in it?
Yeah, we had as a group of knuckleheads. I was 24.
And so is this when you owned the nightclub? You were getting some money?
No, this is when I had the janitorial business.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you were maybe pulling in some cash from that or your buddies, and then you all pulled some funds together, owned the 6 unit. What was the thought process? Because I'm really interested in why do people start investing in real estate? Like what pushed you to buy a 6 unit versus buy another company? Do anything like put the money in stocks or anything like that? What got you to do that?
Well, at that time in San Francisco, it was hotter than hell, and the market was just, you wanted to get in, because people were just streaming in every day, kind of like what's going on here in Richmond. And we all got the money, and they had tenants there, but they were all on short-term leases. So we went to each unit, and I don't know why we did this, but we said, "Hey, I'm going to live in this unit, and we're asking you to leave. I'm sorry, but we have the right." And so they hire like some Haight-Ashbury storefront lawyer, and he writes this letter. I wish I kept it. It said, like you guys have broken many laws and what you've been doing, and blah blah blah. You can't do this, and we're gonna. All these acts,
Right.
We had no idea. And I remember this one line, though, at the end. He goes, "But you don't seem like the typical corporate greedy pig landlord, so we'd like to work a deal out with you."
Holy cow.
It was a classic,
Yeah.
So we worked a deal out. We had to pay him off to tenants, which was okay. We gave him some money to move on. And anyway, we bought that place, and we were all going to live there. We eventually sold out because we wanted to use that money to put it into the San Jose nightclub. But it was a great investment. Obviously, I wish I kept it. They had 6 parking spaces, but I just wanted, you just wanted to get a piece of what's going on.
Right.
Really is what it is. We want to get in there because it's always going to go up.
Right. How did you guys exit that deal?
I sold out to my partner.
Just sold it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you were doing real estate investments, and then now fast forward, you moved to the East Coast. You're in Richmond. You've gotten recruited into commercial real estate, but you were interested in that already.
Yeah.
You're buying and selling multifamily houses around Richmond.
Yeah.
And then
anywhere from 4 units to some duplexes, but mostly 4 units to 30, 50 units at the time.
Was there a particular deal that happened or a mindset shift that caused you to say, one, I want to go all in on this and start my own brokerage, or a particular deal that let you know, I want to do this forever?
Yeah, I think I had this one client, and I remember the day. I sold him his first 4 unit, and then I sold some other 6 units and 12, and he was really excited, and he called me one day, and he goes, "Guess what?" I said, "What?" He goes, "I quit my job. I'm doing this 100%." And he was so happy and excited, and he said, "I want to thank you for helping me get there." It was a great feeling. I'm helping this guy gain wealth.
Right.
I'm making some money. And it was working. And I was like, God, this is great, man. I'm all in. I'm in for good.
Right. That's interesting because a lot of the more successful people that I interview, it's not, the answers are not, well, I was making ridiculous amounts of money and blah, blah, blah. It's always there's some sort of impact that they feel, and it makes them feel good when they make that impact.
Oh, yeah.
So they continue doing what they're doing, and they do it at a much higher and higher level because they get to make more and more of an impact. And then, of course, it results in more money.
Right. and I believe in that. You don't, if you're counting the money all the time, you're losing sight of what you're doing. It's better to be working hard and doing, good deals and making sure people are happy. And, sometimes you got to give a little bit and take, and success will come, but if you're just trying to say, I need to make this much money, it's not the best motivation. Now, everybody is, needs the money.
Right,
I know
for
that,
sure.
and you got to do it, but you can't be, I need to make $1 million this year.
Right.
Because that's going to put you back, and you're not thinking correctly.
Right. 100%. And that's a very short-term game. And because there are the short-term mindset is like, I need to make this much money. But the long-term game is like, if I work this hard and learn this information and network this much and have all these, all of these different efforts that you put into it, you're going to far exceed any monetary goal that you had.
Because things will come.
Right.
If you're just trying to make money, they're not going to come as easy.
So what was the point that One South got started? I actually have no idea what the answer to this is, so I'm interested to know how did One South.
I was doing a lot of deals with Rick Jarvis.
Okay,
and,
cool.
He was like, I would sell him a building. I sold him one on Belmont, and he goes, I don't know if I could afford this as a rental. I go, well, what do you think about condos? And he started doing those, and then one deal was typified about what we did a deal on Franklin. I sold it to what now is Clacken, those guys, Herb and Hugh. And then Rick's sold the finished condos, and his wife Sarah at the time financed the original purchase and construction because she was working for Carl Silver at the time. So Rick was like, this is great. We ought to just do this under one roof. So that's kind of what started it. So it was his idea.
Cool.
And he was definitely a visionary. So we should do a commercial residential group. And, you could feed off the leads and we can feed off your leads and that kind of stuff. And I said, yeah, well, let's do it. So we started in 2008. And
interesting timing.
Right.
Yeah. So he took the residential side more or less, and you took the commercial side, and you guys both grew it and have done very well with both.
And then I forget what year, but we decided two separate companies under one roof, which worked out great.
And then, because I've been to the One South building, the One South commercial, but actually the previous one, I've not been to the new one yet. But
you got to come over.
Yeah, I got to get over there at some point. And you guys have hold some cool events there. But what do you see as the biggest advantages in the commercial space versus residential?
You mean in as investment?
Let's talk about it from the business standpoint of brokerage. Is there an advantage of being on the commercial side versus the residential side?
Well, I mean, I think there is. I like the commercial world a lot better, and I think the good thing about commercial is you can get clients that just keep buying and keep leasing, and you follow with them,
right?
And like we buy our own building, as you want to get in there and own a piece of that, just like you want to own a piece of Richmond, basically. Right. What I say, you just want to keep going, and you're going to be part of the massive change that's going on here right now.
That's an interesting point. That like on the retail side, yes, you get recurring business, especially if you're working with investors on the. Sorry, I think I said retail. On the residential side, you're working with investors that largely are going to purchase their primary, and then they might do it again 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, whatever, unless you're getting in with residential investors, et cetera, and that's fine. But on the commercial side, they're investors for the most part. Like they're investors who are scaling companies that are going to scale and they're going to keep needing to scale their real estate, or they're literal investors that are coming in from all over the nation that want to have some piece of Richmond, and it's at a larger scale that's making an impact and things like that.
Right.
Just your opinion, do you think there should be a different level of licensing between residential real estate and commercial real estate?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see that because we work with residential agents all the time. They're great. But, sometimes the knowledge is just not there because they're not doing a lot of it.
Right.
And, but of course we work with them and we help them as much as we can. But, we are representing our clients. So.
Right. Love real estate agents, residential and commercial, absolutely nothing wrong with them. But like if you are representing yourself as in tune with residential and you're a rock star in that world, commercial is a whole different breed. And it was hard for me to understand that getting into property management and learning the two different spaces. I didn't realize how different they are, especially when it comes to financing and analysis and everything like that.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world. I mean, I even think there should be different licensing because property managers are required to have their licenses, right? And I think you go to these courses and stuff like that, and it doesn't teach you anything about property management. It's just about transactions. Where like I think there should be a different license requirement. I believe there should be a license requirement, but it should be different for property managers as well. It's a whole different part of real estate.
But it'll never happen. I mean,
unfortunately.
It's just
For about 30 seconds one day, I was like, I'm going to be the guy to create that in our state, and I'm going to develop the criteria and do this to improve and I was like, holy cow, that would be my life's work. And I was like, I don't know if I don't want it to be that. I'd rather
try to work with what we have.
Right.
What I say.
Are you principal broker at this time?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're principal broker at One South. How was it getting off the ground at One South, like recruiting agents and getting people to come believe in the vision?
At first I was doing it, and like I worked a lot with Ben Partridge and Patrick Sullivan, residential guys. Hey, look, come over,
Awesome.
you work this deal with me,
Awesome.
And then Ann came and said she wanted to work with me, and I said, yeah, I'd love to. Ann Schweitzer Riley, and so we started doing really good, and I thought we were on a roll. Was quickly she said, hey, Ryan Riley over at CBRE might want to come over, and he does property management. And that's one of the things we do with the team. Everybody's got a background in real estate of some sort.
Yep. Justin Sled was at another company for a while.
He was at Tallheimer, property manager. Ryan was at CB. Ann was at JLL. Mark Merritt has his own business. Chris Carrata was with I forget the Riverfront. And Ken Campbell was with Harrison and Bates, and before that, the corporate world. He was with James River Paper and the Media General.
Okay.
So everybody has a great background. Isaac Weintz came from UVA. Right out of school. That's the only one. But so that made me feel good because they all brought a whole different view, not just brokerage, but they would understand this. And, there's so many facets to this business.
Did you think, was it difficult to get them over, or you just said, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we believe in, this is our values, and they're like, we're on board?
Yeah, it was pretty easy. I mean, they all kind of wanted the change. Lori Markham came from the city planning. She wanted to make that change. And then Justin wanted to get into brokerage.
Right.
And Ryan wanted to get into brokerage. So it wasn't like a difficult,
right.
And of course, we didn't have the resources CB or the big groups do, but, we have a different mindset and a different what we bring to the table.
That is so powerful to any business owners, but people who want to grow businesses or want to make hires, and they say, well, I can't afford anyone. With our company, it's very similar, where early on we didn't have a lot of money or funds or really even like credibility, but we had a vision and we had a mindset and we had something that was different. And we would share that vision and that mindset to people either at other companies or with different backgrounds, or people that could bring all kinds of experience and knowledge to our team when I didn't have it. Like I was like, hey, I'm great at being a leader and building a team and understanding business and the nuances there, but I didn't have the property management background, so we had to recruit, and we brought people from all over that had years and years of experience, but they weren't in the teams that had the right mindset or the right vision that they really could support and believe in long term. And so they would come to Peak, and then and it's interesting because as I worked with One South more and more, I really liked the personality and the feel behind the brokerage, which is what attracted my company to trying to build a lot of relationships with yours because of that. Because we were like, hey, they're a boutique company, but they're crushing it, and they have all kinds of great relationships, and they have a good feel about them. Their people are good. They understand the community. They're community focused and really smart people. And so we've certainly run into There's other brokerages out there that do a great job, but we've run into people that are not that way, that just want to do the transaction and stuff like that. And so when we want to build these relationships, we're hoping to find other people that want to build the relationships as well.
That's great. We love to work with everybody, when you especially, and you know, we call ourselves hard charging brokers. You know, we're there early, we leave in the evening, and nobody's kind of just sitting around just to be there. You know, everybody's working hard and enjoying it.
Yep. And so you're setting the expectation there that you want to be a really top of the line brokerage, like not an average brokerage. You want to be one of the better ones. And at Peak, I will on day one tell people, even in the interview process, if I'm doing interviews, that like, I don't want anyone on our team to ever be comfortable. I don't want them to drown. I don't want them to feel overwhelmed or suffer. But I don't want anyone to ever be comfortable, because then we're not pushing ourselves to do better. We're not advancing. We're not growing as a company. And so I have this kind of feeling that like slightly uncomfortable at all times is where you need to be.
That's right.
And that's how you're growing and advancing. How important is the broker-investor relationship in finding and securing great commercial deals?
As an investor, I think the best thing to do is to be honest and say I'm working with other guys or I'm not, you know, because you want to know where you're standing. And obviously, I understand why people want to, you know, test the market. But after a certain point, you want to say, hey, you know, come to us. We'll find you some things.
So what is it? I did want to touch on that, because I can imagine that could be extremely frustrating in a medium-sized city like Richmond, where everyone knows everyone, and you get the people from out of town, from different states and stuff, and they're going to call 3 brokers, but they don't know those brokers go out and grab drinks together. They don't know that they're doing deals together constantly and things like that. How do you suggest investors handle that when they are, let's say, from a seller, from a listing standpoint? That's obvious. You got to pick a broker and roll with them. But like on the buying standpoint, they want to talk to the top 3 brokers. They want to talk to all these and then put their name out and develop relationships with them and work with all of them to get all the deals, off market relationships, everything. How do you suggest an investor handle that appropriately?
Well, I think it's so hard because, you know, they're trying to get deals, especially the first couple are so hard to get into. But you really get to know the broker, hang out, you know, have some coffee, talk to them a few times, you know, go out and look. You might find a property, communicate with them, because a lot of these guys are rolling, and say, hey, you know, let's get together, bug them. You know, you got to get on their screen, and then eventually, you know, you'll find a deal together. And then, because we want long-term clients, you know, we don't just want one-offs. So we're working hard to get the best deal. And, you know, the classic Richmond deal is everybody's a little ticked off at it, you know, I mean, because it's just the pricing is tough, you know, the the expectations are tough, the selling expectations are tough. So nothing wrong with a little bit of agitation in the middle of everything, you know, and understand that nothing's that smooth and it's going to be beautiful and all that.
I found that brokerages, while they might buy and sell the same assets, they have different personalities, but they might also more or less like specialize in different assets or have more of a certain asset that you're after. And I think that research will help you understand what brokerage, broker, or agent that you want to really like kind of adhere to through the buying process. And, and I do think if you have too many, then you're not going to get attention from anyone, because they're just like, you're all going after the same deals. These people who are successful that can find you the deals are working with other people, and they got plenty of buyers. So they're not going to waste their time on someone else who's like going after the same deals with three other brokers or agents. What's your advice for brokers who want to build for investors that want to build stronger relationships with brokers? You mentioned take them out to coffee, not as, you know, who cares who pays for it or whatever. Like that's I think an overstated thing is like, I'll buy you coffee. It's like, cool, man. You know, we're selling millions of dollars of real estate here. It's not, so it's almost like for some reason that bothers me when people are like, I'll buy. Like when you're there, cool. Like there's always that discussion, but like that's not why I'm going out to spend an hour of time with you to get a free, you know, $4 cup of coffee. What is a really good way to build a strong relationship with a broker? And when I say broker, I mean an agent, a broker, a brokerage, et cetera.
I just think be honest and say, here's what I want to do. Here's my situation. I know you got other guys you're working with. I'd like to get in there and get to know the business, get to know you guys, and get to know the market. It's a commitment. I mean, it's a relationship, and you try to keep, but be honest on what do you have? What kind of assets do you have? Are you lendable? I mean, you're going to be and then, talk to a manager, talk to Peak, talk to a lender. We've got great lending relations. One thing about Richmond, we've got great community banking.
Of course.
It's really
some great ones.
Yeah, it's really a lot of good bankers in town, and try to get to really become a buddy with them, because those are your key guys, your key partners.
Right, and if you have the right team in place, it's going to be way smoother for everyone to get that deal done. What's your? I've always found it's best to add value as much as possible. And early in the game, like let's say when I started meeting some of the folks at One South, I would do everything I can to refer business to One South. And it was one, because I believed in what you guys are doing, but two, I knew that if I put myself in a position for your team to make money, that you guys would like me more. So like, have you ever had investors go out of their way to do something special to really buy your attention or relationship?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think. I wish they would.
Yeah,
but
yeah, of course.
It's pretty much just a cut and dry. Hey, we want to work together. I mean, I think the key is the sincerity,
right?
And you really want to get focused on Richmond, and that's what happens sometimes in Northern Virginia. Guys come down, they're all hot to go. They come down. The trip's a long trip. And then it's like, damn, man, I don't know if I keep doing this. And then they'll make some excuse. I don't like the market or something, which I understand.
There's usually some rationalization. I think we'll get to that in a little bit. But like, why are people don't make their first deal and things like that.
Yeah.
But maybe that's on top of sincerity. If investors really are struggling to get the attention that they want from brokers, I would suggest potentially trying to add value to some extent, maybe go above and beyond, because if no one else is doing that, let's say you want to get the attention of a broker, you have other people that that are investing in this market, try to get them in front of that broker too if they don't have those relationships already. And then that's going to make the broker think twice about who you are as a person. You're a sincere person. You also might have a network. You also really want the broker to win, and that usually means you're probably going to be more decent to do business with.
Understand that, if you're here the first time, you're from out of town, or you're a Richmond guy, and you want to buy something, the brokers aren't going to give you the best deal that's off market. That's just not going to, I want to be around all the off market deals. Well, you kind of earn that.
Right.
You do a couple deals.
Right.
And then you see what happens.
Right.
Because, we've got clients that we've been working with. I've got people I'm working with 30 some odd years, And a lot of DC guys that came down in the beginning have really made a lot of money because they bought these things. They weren't, we used to get in these arguments. Things were $160,000 for a 6-unit in the fan. And people would argue and go back and forth, and the guys DC kind of shaking their heads, shit, I'll buy this thing.
Yeah, right.
What's the problem here? And they really have made great money,
That's awesome. A lot to do with perspective, I think. I'll never forget. I think it was two brothers come. They might even talk to One South at some point, but two brothers came down from Chicago, and there was this deal where it's like it was a few maybe 5 years ago or so, and there were some deals they were looking at, and everyone was like, man, those are some rough properties, and the guys were like, those are beautiful properties. Three people got shot outside my office last week. Like these are awesome properties to have. No one's been shot there in the past year. You know? And I'm just like, so a lot of real estate, I think that it's easy for us to get in our bubble in Richmond, but a lot of it is like just keeping an open perspective. Like the DC guys come down and are like, what are you guys complaining about? This is a great deal.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've facilitated hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate in some capacity. Can you recall any really art of the deal moves that an investor has made, like one or two specific examples without names or addresses or anything, but a really smooth move, like art of the deal, creative move that someone's done to make a deal happen? Yeah,
I remember this is early on, and this buyer came in, and I was working with him, and he offered a certain number. They countered, and then he offered up a little bit more. He upped his offer more than they expected, and he just saw the value in the property, and we were competing, and he understood that he could take, I forget what it was, but something in that building to make it a lot better, and there was a little extra slice of land. He was going to take off and go. So basically what he did, just got rid of the competition, like that. And he goes, I don't want to get an auction. This is a great piece of property. I'll pay him over the ask. And sometimes you just got to think differently. Everybody gets so wrapped up in cap rates, and he didn't give it any. He goes, I understand it's going to take me some time and effort.
Right.
I'm going to get there. Yeah, it's not just I need my return.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to be hemmed in. You have to look at these deals, holistic, and how can you make money on it, especially when everybody in the world wants to buy, in Richmond right now.
So you think creativity can play a big role in like finding out how to actually buy these assets when you're competing with everyone else?
Right.
Is there a time where creativity is a nuisance?
That's a good question again. I think, sometimes you get too cute. You know what I mean? Too many, how about this or how about that?
Right.
But I mean, I used to work with a guy, brilliant guy, had the MBA, CPA, and he would get in the room with the sellers and just kind of give them the pitch. And it was very sincere. And it was, I'm going to do this, and this to the property. I need a little help. Can you hold some paper? So my bank can feel more comfortable with the equity. And they usually say, yeah, because they liked his vision, and he would follow up and make the improvements, and they'd get paid out.
Awesome.
That's not it's not really a hindrance, but it was another success, how he worked it.
Right. Do you think that, sometimes in residential real estate transactions, emotions can play a toll where, and I'm talking in the capacity of like, the buyer writes a letter to the seller, and the seller says, this is a really sweet letter. Their names are the same names as my kids. I'm going to, do you see any emotional pull on the commercial side, or way less of emotional pull on the commercial side?
Yeah, not so much, but, it would help if you're the seller of a building that's been in your family a long time, to know the background, what they're going to do with it. That's much more emotional for the sellers about, this is my grandfather's restaurant, and we did it, and he made money, and my dad made money. What are you going to do? And that
demo it.
Yeah, I mean,
like the people who just miss that aspect of the transaction and just say, I'm going to demo it and I'm going to build. I think that probably to your point, like you need to be aware of what they're telling you and the story they're telling you, and then play off that story as much as you can, honestly. And speaking of creativity, before we move on to the next thing, it brought up something that I remember. There was a mutual friend of ours was looking at a medical building. And it was close to 100,000 square foot, and he was competing with monster players in the area with deep pockets. And this guy has done well for himself, but he's not raising money or anything like that. And so he sees something that no one else sees. And it's I believe at the time it was 100,000 square foot, and it was a 2-story building. But he saw the landscape around the building was the base of the building had a massive basement. It was 66. Let's call it 66,000 square foot, 2 stories. The basement was 33,000 square foot, wow. And it had no windows or anything like that. It was just a basement, and so he was like, "Can we dig this thing out?"
Wow!
And so he excavated around the entire building and then reinforced, did whatever he had to do, and created 33,000 square foot, just put in windows.
Yeah.
And then created 33,000 square foot and got it leased on like a 10, 20-year lease, converted it to a medical building, and then sold it for an outrageous increase.
Yeah,
and so it's creativity is pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, and it's always like, what can we do with this building to make it the best? That's what's great about this business. Mm-hmm. If you're in the brokerage or actually buying, but you see these buildings getting totally transformed like that one. I mean, that's a great story because you're increasing the value, but you're also increasing the community, at the same time, because now you got this great asset versus mediocre.
Right.
That's why I love this Willow Lawn area. There's so many people in here buying and trying to make it better.
This whole place is going to change pretty
yeah.
pretty crazy for the next 10 years.
A lot of energy.
It's crazy to, like, the Willow Lawn area. I don't even remember exactly. It's been a while since I've read about it, but it's going to be like a 10-year phase build out, and it's just like thousands of condos, I think, and maybe another few thousands of like apartments, like for rent, and then all kinds of retail. It's insane what's going on. When evaluating an investment property, what key factors or potential red flags can a broker help identify for a buyer?
So, you look at the numbers and you see you got to have a baseline of experience of like, okay, taxes and insurance should be so much per unit or, percentage of cost. And so should maintenance. So should, this seems high, this seems low. You just got to look at the margins and what is everybody else doing. That kind of changes, through the years. Taxes, insurance have gone up really high. It's really been a tough one for investors.
One thing that I really appreciate about a lot of team members that you have at One South, and in particular, I have just one or two things in my mind early on with Justin Sled. He was a property manager for a while. And then when you're analyzing deals and walking properties with these multifamily buildings with him, he knows what he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and that's like, it seems like that should be obvious, but
Right.
He knows what he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
And he's looking at like the T12s, the financials and stuff. And he's like, well, I actually don't see this expense, and this needs to be in there. Like this, there absolutely is going to be like a pest control expense
Right.
or, something. And so when we would work through like pro formas for potential clients or buyers or whoever, or we get financials from sellers, and we would look through those and be like, all right, what's the likelihood that they're missing these things, and what average expense might that be? And early on, when I was really learning those assets, it was awesome to have some of the One South people in my network to be able to help walk me through some of that and help me learn until we were able to get more experienced people on our team.
Absolutely. And now there's probably a point where you just say, I don't need the expenses. I know what my expenses are going to be to cost to run this building. But to get there is a long process. But a little story on Justin. We were looking at a building the other day. We was listing together, and the power was out. The tenant was gone, and the owner tried to get the power back on. It wasn't on, and we're trying to figure it out. And Justin goes out. I go, well, they got the black tag in here, so that's good. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, on the meter. This. I didn't even know that. I've been in this business for 30 years. Red with it's black.
Right,
like,
right.
Yeah, okay, got it. So because he had so many experience like that.
It's in property management. It's all about reps. And you get like just hundreds or thousands of reps over years, and you just learn. The thing is like every rep is a little different, like because it's a different property, it's a different tenant that you're talking to that asks different questions, it's a different owner that asks different questions. It's and so you just learn so many different variables, and you just know what to look for, and it's really cool working with people with that time in the market, and then also like having now that we have a far more experienced team and a lot more time under our belt here working with those types of assets, the solutions are far easier to come by when weird things happen. So and working with utilities and things like that can be fun. We want to work with great brokers and great agents as investors. How do we identify? How do we know who's great versus who maybe is not quite there yet, still learning? Like if I want a really experienced person on my team that can help me solve these problems or get this deal done, how do I know who to work with?
Well, I would look at the companies and what they've done, and the agents, what have they done? Go to our website, onesouthcommercial.com. You'll see the profiles, and you'll see the listings, and you'll see that we've done a we do a bunch of different things, and we do a lot of it. And ask the agent or ask the broker, what things have you sold, and you ask probing questions like how many did you do last year, the year before, and just get a feel for what their experience level is and how they approach the market. That's a big key. Is like some of these guys just look on MLS and that's it, and that's how they find the property. But there's many other different sources, so you've got to be able to say, how do you go get it? How do you go get the properties? We've talked to lots of different people to unlock properties, not just wait for them to come to us. We're constantly talking to attorneys, CPAs, what do you call that? Estate people, we're trying to get bankers,
Is there outside of licensing, which is required, is there a credential or?
Well, there's a CCIM program. I don't have one, and it's basically, it gives you credibility.
Gotcha.
But it's a paper,
right?
And but you do have, if somebody's done that. They know how to do a pro forma. They know how to analyze a deal.
In theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, in theory. Like I actually probably invest enough, at least an hour, maybe 2 hours of learning almost every day to try to get better at what I do. I did the same thing when I was in the fitness industry to be the best at what I do there to the best of my capability when I was in that industry. Same thing in the motorcycle industry, et cetera, before that. But I never had any credentials or anything. Like I never believed in all the letters behind my name. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great that people want to go out and get the schooling, but I'm also a guy who dropped out of college, right? Like I didn't care about the college degree. I just wanted to get out there and learn and do the best I can and work. And I would work alongside fitness trainers that had the I'm forgetting the credential, but it's a really awesome, credible, where like 99% of the people that have it are geniuses and know exactly what they're talking about. But I've also worked with a couple of people that were like, hey, it took me 5 times to pass the course and I passed it yesterday. And then I would ask a question about like some sort of movement and they'd be like, I don't know what that definition is. Right. And
I forgot everything I studied.
Right. So I think there's, to some degree, it's awesome. And I would probably bet that in most cases, if you have the credibilities and credentials by your name, you're solid. But I wouldn't get caught up in that too much.
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, look, Ken, I think Ryan, and Chris, they all have MBAs, in the real estate from
solid.
VCU.
Yeah.
And that's really strong. That's good. That's a great program.
Yeah. In a couple of years to get through and you're just learning from.
As a broker, I think one of the best courses is the appraisal course, So if you learn that because that's evaluating properties.
Right.
Getting the value down.
Right. Yeah, and that's a challenging course too. Like if you get through that, it's it takes some work to get through that.
Yeah, yeah.
What's your philosophy on balancing investing personally, or through an LLC or whatever, but like your personal investments and working with investors to buy and sell real estate?
So what I do, I sometimes partner with clients a fair amount. And I throw my commission in, or I say, hey, if you need me to slice equity, I'll be happy to jump in. And that's worked out really well because the actual buyer feels good because, you're putting your money where your mouth is. And then you get a little piece of the deal and you get a little piece of the appreciation as it goes up.
Right.
And it gets you into a lot of different partnerships and deals and stuff like that.
So it turns a transactional relationship, what could be a transactional relationship, say, hey, I actually support the purchase of this asset. I'll put my money in the deal.
Yeah.
And because I believe it's going to perform, I believe the numbers that we've given you are going to work out and we have the right team around this and things like that. And then further, that investor might want to buy some more assets and do some more deals, and it pretty much ties you together.
Yeah. And it works, But, a lot of guys don't want to do that, so you just keep selling. But as customers first in terms
for sure,
like if I get a great listing, like a real killer listing, I'll go to clients instead of scraping it up myself.
Right. That's a hard struggle for someone who wants to invest in real estate. Now, as professionals, I shouldn't say it's a really hard struggle because it's the easy decision. The long-term game for me is to take care of our clients and grow this company and make a bigger impact, because I can make a bigger impact, in my opinion, through this company than just buying my own real estate investments. But you are at the center of all kinds of relationships in real estate investing. And then as Peak, on the residential side and the commercial side, we know when people are buying and selling and what they're looking for, what deals they're looking at and stuff like that. And the idea is like the pull to want to work with them or get in the deal at some point, like assuming it's beneficial for everyone. It makes you think like, man, I should be doing more real estate. But at the same time, it's always get our clients in a strong position first to make sure that they are successful. And then eventually, things will naturally come across my plate that are for me and aren't my investors,
and
right?
It's hard to see sometimes.
Right.
Like when you look at the settlement statement, like, damn, that guy, it feels great. But at the same time, like, why the hell didn't I put money into that one? Or, ask him to do it or.
And then, but you obviously realize like the long game where you win in the long run, the more clients you help, the better you perform for them. Yeah. You by far exceed whatever that property did in the long run.
And, it goes around.
Right, for sure. What, in your opinion, what separates successful commercial investors versus people who don't pull the trigger?
Well, yeah, you got to be able to say it's time to go.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just keep, what are they, paralysis by analysis.
Right.
Just,
do you think that's probably the biggest thing you see? People overanalyzing everything?
Also, you're always there's too many people are trying to beat the market. Like I remember I showed, this is in like 9 or 10, I showed a 36 unit on Grove to a client. And he goes, what does this guy want? I go, 85 units. He goes, I'd never pay 85 units in the fan. That's absurd. And look what happened. And, I'm right there with him. Look, there's a million properties in Richmond that I could have bought for nothing, comparatively.
Right.
And, sometimes you got to look. You got to look up a little bit and see what's happening. Like some of these developers, I forget who it was, but they talked about, it was in BizSense, I think. I think it was Tom Papa, I forget though. But he made a comment. He goes, the next 10 years in Richmond are going to, the last 10 years look like, nothing. So you have to keep that in mind. I mean, people come in here every day.
Right.
They love this place, and things are going to increase in value because of that.
Right. And that's true. Like when we say Richmond, we're talking about Central Virginia, I think.
Exactly.
Like, it's because it all spreads around and coming down from DC and everything else. So there's a lot of opportunity around here. And I get caught up in that too, where it's like I've almost not bought certain single family houses because they were a few $1,000s more than I wanted to pay. And then I'm like, what is it even? It's not going to matter a year from now. Like it doesn't, especially over like 20 years or something. Like, what am I doing? And so I think like that I'm fortunate that I don't have like, I don't mind taking risk at all. It doesn't, like, I think of worst case scenario and what might happen, but if that's not like ruining my family or financial state, like I'm probably going to do it. Like,
I mean, the reason that these prices are going though is because people want to be in the market.
Right.
It's just they're moving here or they're investing here, and we got these great things like the amphitheater coming. So that's
pretty awesome. Yeah,
that stuff really does come out.
Do you see any commonly repeated mistakes that new investors make that they should try to avoid?
Yeah, I think sometimes you got to leave money in the building. You can't just strip it out. And some of these guys, their margins are too tight. You got to be able to put that reserve in every month. You can't pay yourself what you want. And you have to understand going in, you might not be able to. So you have to have other means of income besides this thing, and it'll eventually come up. But if you take out the money and you don't put it back in, it's going to come back and bite you.
I feel like there's some crossover, like we're talking about residential investing largely can pull out a lot of money from smaller assets, or if they have to let money sit in there, it's a smaller amount of money. Like I look at commercial investing as like a lot of the same principles. You just add a zero or two zeros to the end of it. But do you see for the residential investors that might want to make a jump to commercial real estate, whether it be commercial multifamily or office or retail or industrial, is there a mindset shift that they might need to make that you see between those people, or are they more set up because they're already in the game and they just need to get used to that extra zero or two?
I think there's some real opportunities for small office buildings in the region, because you've got so many people moving here, these businesses are going to start, and they're good investments for owner occupants or for small investors. Now, there's a lot that go wrong. It's riskier, but I think in Richmond it's going to, I'm not talking about a gigantic building. I'm talking about, 10,000, 5,000 even, and then they can step in. And you do have to look differently, because when you have a tenant leave, it's not as easy to get in. So you got to get with a good office leasing guy and talk to him, get to know him, and what can we do here? What can we get on per square foot? How much is it going to cost me to, renovate, and what do I need to do? Like these little buildings around here, if you get a hold of one of these, it's, Patterson Avenue, Huguenot.
Right.
It's a good avenue right now.
Right.
It's underlooked a little bit.
Yeah.
Everything else in Richmond's like,
people are jumping after.
Yeah. Retail is one that everybody thought was beat up, but it's killing. It's still doing really, really, really
Especially
well.
in this market like Richmond, the retail is still pretty popular. Like people want to go out and all the mom and pop shops and everything like that.
Shops,
So small office, you think over the next few years, obviously it is riskier, but you think that's one of the asset classes that commercial investors should be looking at?
Yeah, I would. Again, I don't say jump into it, but
Right.
if you want to do something different than houses or even apartments, it's something to look at. Obviously industrial, but that's getting harder and harder, more and more expensive.
Right. Yeah, I think probably small office would be the easiest one
Yeah.
to approach first as a newer commercial investor.
And, if you have a business, you can put your business in there,
Right.
Which is banks love owner-occupied office.
Right.
There's a big bucket of money that they want to loan for that.
Right. What do you think is an actionable item that someone can do today or this week if they want to start getting into commercial real estate investing?
Obviously, pool your money, start talking to as many people as you can, bankers, lawyers, CPAs, just get ready. Just like starting your own business, and you got to go get it and hit up brokers. Look on all the websites. It's all right there.
Right.
You go LoopNet, CoStar, but I mean the individual brokerages websites, you can find deals.
And just to kind of promote One South a little bit, what type of asset specifically, like what would you say, what criteria of assets are you guys, do you really enjoy listing and leasing and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, as leasing, Ann and Ken and Chris really do a lot of office and retail. We're doing Ken and Chris do a lot of industrial leasing. But we, obviously we still love multifamily. Ryan's really doing a lot of the bigger deals. Justin's doing, his machine of 4 units, duplexes, right. 6 units, that kind of stuff. And, we're all kind of at an intersection a lot of times, so we partner up. So Ann will grab Chris, or, Ryan will work with Ken or something, and they'll go do a deal.
Do you guys, is there a cap on like the size of building that you want to deal with? Like, would you sell a 200,000 square foot
absolutely.
Building and lease it and stuff like that?
Yeah. We
but then you guys also do a 5,000 square foot.
Right.
And then areas, what about the geographic areas that you guys operate in?
So we're, obviously we're in Central Virginia, so we do a ton of work here. But we also have done, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 deals down in Tidewater, mostly apartment deals down there. Love that market. I mean, it's just a great apartment market because of all the military and everything.
Right.
And the turnover is good. And then Ryan and I did a deal up in Northern Virginia last year. We did an affordable apartment deal. So we go all around. We just in the state of Virginia. We've done couple big deals in Blacksburg and Radford area.
What's next for Tom in your investing, or what's next for One South?
As far as investing, I'm always looking and I'm always excited about deals. I'm meeting somebody next week that might want to partner. My wife and I did with Dave Johannes and his wife 26 townhouses back in the day, and right in the middle of '08 hit. So that was a whole learning curve, dealing with the banks and everything. But we, because of that, people every once in a while, hey, would you like to partner? So I'm meeting somebody next week. That might happen. And I'm putting money. We're all kind of putting money into deals with clients that say, "Hey, when I'm looking for some cash, would you guys want to put some money in?" So I kind of like that a lot better for brokers because it's kind of removes you. You're helping a client, but you're also spending your time doing the brokerage.
Right.
And then One South, we're going to keep growing slowly. We don't want to be huge. I think a real optimum level would be 15, 20 brokers.
Where can people contact you or One South if they want to get in touch?
OneSouthCommercial.com.
Okay.
Go there. We got a great website. We have all our profiles. All our listings are on there. And you can hit us up. You got the numbers. All our phone numbers are there.
Awesome. Great. Awesome. Well, Tom, let me ask, any final thoughts?
No, I really appreciate this. It's great to talk about the business. And again, I think Richmond is on a roll, and just get a piece of it. That's what I tell people. You're not just buying a duplex. You're buying a duplex in a neighborhood that's part of Richmond, and people are moving here, And that's a key thing. When I first got in the business here, it was very stagnant.
Right.
It's been stagnant for years, and then it started coming, and it's just it's an amazing thing to see.
Well, Richmond's become an incredible city in Central Virginia because of that. And it's because people like you and your team that are adding your value and expertise and experience and knowledge to investors to help them be successful in this market. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing some great information, and we can learn a lot from your experience and what you bring to the table. So I would encourage anyone who might be listening to this to reach out to One South and Tom if you're interested in commercial real estate investing, get some information and knowledge from them, especially in the Central Virginia area. Thanks, Tom, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. Really appreciate what you guys have done too at Peak, and appreciate you having me on here today.
Thank you.
All right.